You know,
All right. Just an offer. Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's time to call the Board of Commissioners meeting to order. I want to thank everyone in attendance and those who are tuned in online. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Elizabeth, can you call the roll, please?
Yes, ma'am. Mayor Harker?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Cooper?
here.
Commissioner Gilligan?
Here.
Commissioner LaPiccolo?
Here.
Commissioner Oliver?
Here.
Commissioner Spiegler?
Here. Thank you. Before I ask for the agenda to be approved, I'd like to make some amendments to the agenda. I would like to remove the food truck ordinance update from old business. While this has been a topic of great interest, and I want to thank those who have provided their feedback, I believe it's too significant to address fully during this meeting. Instead, I propose discussing this topic at the board retreat that's going to be in February. In addition, I would like to add to the amendment to the closed session under the North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11a and 6 to discuss personnel matters. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So move.
Got a motion on the floor. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed have the same right. Now, we've got 5 items for the items of consent. Elizabeth has been very busy getting our minutes together, so we've got plenty of those from October and November. We've got a personnel policy amendment for Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, the personnel policy amendment, computer, emails, devices, and internet usage. Carteret Community College MOU, this will allow for a mobile classroom to be at the Beaufort Fire Station 2. And the Town of Beaufort Economic Development Strategic Plan, which is part of the process of us working towards becoming a Main Street community. With that being said, can I get a motion to approve the items of consent?
So that be approved, the item of consent, all 5.
Thank you. I've got a motion on the floor. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed have the same right. Now, we're here for a very special reason tonight. Chief Burdett, I'm not sure where he's at. There you go.
Right there.
All right. So tonight, we are here to honor Captain Edwards. And I'll let Chief Burdett start the introduction.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Board, Ms. Mayor. Captain Edwards joined the Beaufort Police Department in December of 1992, coming to us from the North Carolina State Port Authority. His long career with the Beaufort Police Department has placed him in a position to serve in virtually every capacity. He was hired as a police officer, was then promoted to sergeant, then transitioned to a position with the Criminal Investigations Division. There, he worked as a detective, ultimately achieving the rank of chief detective, where he would serve the majority of his career. In 2017, he was promoted to the rank of captain, where he was assigned as the patrol commander. He served in this role for 3 years. During a restructuring of the department in 2021, he was placed back in charge of the Criminal Investigations Division, where he served until his retirement date of December 1st, 2024. Regardless of his assignment, his role as an instructor has placed him in a position to work closely with every member of the agency and law enforcement personnel from around the region. Troy Edwards is the picture of institutional knowledge. He has been a witness to the growth, challenges, and successes the town of Beaufort and the Beaufort Police Department have seen. He is a familiar face to our community and has provided a sense of calm in some of our citizens' darkest moments. In the halls of the department, he is simply known as Uncle Troy. His willingness to serve and support broader town efforts epitomizes the goal of town employees working together to address whatever challenge may be in front of us. While he may not grace us with his presence every day moving forward, we are fortunate to have him remain with the agency in a reserve officer capacity. Troy, will you please come forward for a couple presentations? Step right in front. This first presentation is from the town of Beaufort, recognizing your 32 years of faithful service. Our officers thank you, our community thanks you, and I am grateful for your assistance and friendship throughout my tenure as your chief. It reads, "Thank you for your dedicated service to the town of Beaufort." The second presentation is from Governor Roy Cooper. Upon successful application and supporting documents outlining his incredible service, Troy was nominated for and awarded the prestigious Order of the Longleaf Pine. The citation reads as follows: "Reposing special confidence in the integrity, learning, and zeal of Troy LaDon Edwards, I do by these presents confer the Order of the Longleaf Pine, with the rank of Ambassador Extraordinary, privileged to enjoy fully all rights granted to members of this exalted order, among which is a special privilege to propose the following North Carolina toast in select company anywhere in the free world. Here's to the land of the longleaf pine, the summer land where the sun doth shine. Where the wheat grows strong and the strong grow great, here's to down home, the old North State." Signed, Roy Cooper, December 1st, 2024. Troy will also be presented with his service weapon as outlined in North Carolina General Statute 17F-20, along with a shadow box which is next door displaying his badge, patch, uniform shirt, challenge coin, and the actual town of Beaufort flag that was flown in front of the police department on the date of his retirement. Troy, would you like to address the board or the community?
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, Mr. Manager, town staff, my former co-workers who are all gathered here. This means a lot. I'm overwhelmed to be receiving this recognition. I just whispered in Chief's ear, "You didn't have to do all this for me." But I'm glad he did. About 32 years ago, I stood in about this same spot and was interviewed by the Board of Commissioners and the then Mayor, Miss Catherine Cloud, who asked me several questions and basically wanted to get to know me and wanted to know why I wanted to come to work at the Beaufort Police Department. So I started my career here, my first time addressing the board and being hired behind this very podium. And so I'll be signing off behind this very podium 32 years later. Over the years, I've experienced a lot of good things in this career. I've seen a lot of bad things too. Every police officer across this nation, we deal with people sometimes on the worst days and during the worst times of their lives. And I can say that the majority of the experiences I've had here with the town of Beaufort have been great, wonderful, memorable experiences. I wanted to say over the years, there's probably been a time or two that I have neglected my wife and my son. And to that, I say, I'm sorry, but I was doing what I thought needed to be done to build a better life for us. For my coworkers who are all standing back here in the back of this auditorium, it has truly been a pleasure about the last 8 to 10 years to work with each and every one of you. And it has been, it's been humbling to many of you when you come to me. You didn't come to me as Captain Edwards, you came to me as your friend. and I proudly wear the name you guys gave me of Uncle Troy, because that's how I feel our relationship was, that I was the cool uncle you could come to anytime you needed it. And in closing, I would just like to give a little credit to probably the third most important person in this world, my grandfather, who is departed. He taught me a long time ago, and I remember his verbiage. He said, "It doesn't matter whatever you do in this world and with your life." He said, "Leave what you do in better shape after you've been there than when you started." And I would like to think Beaufort Police Department and my colleagues are in a little bit better shape now than they were. And I thank you all for recognizing me tonight. Thank you. It means so much.
Don't go anywhere yet. Don't go anywhere yet, Captain. I have a few words, and I think the board would like to say a few words of appreciation as well, and I'll give them that opportunity. I'm going to date our time together. I remember meeting you for the first time when my two children were at Beaufort Elementary, and you were our DARE officer. Everybody remember DARE? And you had such patience with these young children and words of wisdoms that related to them. And I don't know if you remember the story of the 3 little pigs that you shared with them. Think about it. It still resonates to me as a mother, and it impacted my children. So I want to thank you for having that positive impact as a law enforcement on our children growing up. It really today is a testament to your leadership. You're leaving an indelible mark on this institution. And I am really so pleased that you have been serving your time here with us. And I would like to have the commissioners say a little word of gratitude before you leave the podium. We'll start with Commissioner Lopiccolo.
Thank you. Well, I think it's a testament for you to be here and to have the entire force behind you. It says a lot for your leadership throughout the years. The chief, bring these honors to you. It just says a lot for what you've done. It's understandable to have put your heart and soul into this community and to have gone above and beyond with your time for this community and to have sacrificed even your family time, unfortunately. But you did what we thought was right, and you obviously you did leave this. You are leaving this place in a better form, in a better position than it was a long time ago. And as a resident, I thank you for that.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Gilligan.
Thanks. Troy, I've seen you around for a long time, and as a citizen and as a state employee, you have answered my call every time I've called you on your cell phone. You've always been super helpful, even in situations that were kind of tense. We left the call laughing and joking, and every time, I see you on the street, it's like, oh, well, of course, I'm going to say hey to Troy, run across the street, say hey to Troy. And I just appreciate you being easy to contact, you follow up with people, you care, and I'm going to miss that. And I think your colleagues will too. And I'm just so glad you've been here for so long and that source of institutional knowledge, and it sounds like that you're going to hang around a little bit longer in another capacity. So congratulations, and so excited for your Long Leaf Pine Award.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Cooper.
Well, 32 years, that is quite an accomplishment. And when we do things such as that, sometimes the family do suffer, but it's always for the better good. And 32 years, that is a long haul there. I guess a lot of fishing is in the works here. So I guess this is going to be a time to renew that bonding with your wife and son. 32 years, though some years will not be able to recapture, but you can make new memories. And again, congratulations.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Commissioner Oliver.
Troy, I just want you to know that the friendship that you've created here across this community, and that doesn't stop today, that just continues on, and I hope you'll I hope you'll feel comfortable in continuing on the friendships that you've had across this community.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very
sir.
much, sir.
Thank you. Commissioner Spiegler.
Well, I think it's all been said. I'll just echo everything that I've heard. As a citizen and a new commissioner, just thank you for everything you've done for our community over the years. Just very privileged to have you and a wonderful staff here. And I'll say congratulations and good luck in your new journey, whatever that will be. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Troy, my first 10 years here, you were always a go-to person within the department. You were knowledgeable, steady. You are a good mentor to the officers that have come and gone while you've been here, and you've been a good mentor to our current police chief. And for that, I thank you. You were here in the transition period of the police chief, and I think that you and Paul have developed a very good, enviable relationship, and I can't say enough for the dedication of you and the other officers and anyone involved in public safety. I understand the family sacrifices and the personal sacrifices, let alone the personal endangerment that comes with the job. But to you, sir, job well done. Enjoy your retirement. I highly recommend it.
So do I, Mr. Manager.
Yes.
And thank you all.
Well, thank you. You've been the cornerstone of this community. You will leave a legacy that will inspire all of us. Chief Burdett, thank you for applying for the prestigious award of the Longleaf Pine. You are so well deserving of that award. And I think Dora's got a honeydew list for you, so go back and get it. She's giving me the thumbs up. So go get that. We are going to have a short recess. There is going to be some refreshments on the other side. If you wish to go over there and continue to roast Captain Edwards, if you'd like to. But we're going to eventually continue on with the meeting, but I'm going to give you enough time to go to the other side of the train depot if you're ready.
Thank you, sir.
Let's go. Move, move, move.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. But not so funny. I expected a little bit more. Están listos. Muy bien. All righty, so we are going to continue on with the meeting and come out of recess. The next call of order are presentations. The first one is the FY 2024 audit presentation, and Charlie, who will introduce Ms. Thompson.
Christy Wood, our finance director, will do the introductions.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. I have Tanya Thompson here to present the presentation for the FY24 audit.
Good evening. Thank you for having me, Mayor and Commissioners. As Christy said, my name is Tanya Thompson. I'm a senior audit manager at Martin Starnes & Associates. This is the first year that I've had the pleasure of auditing the town of Beaufort, and I'm happy to be here tonight to share the results of your fiscal year 2024 audit. So your audit is a very long and involved process. We start usually in the spring, doing preliminary testing before year end, and then we come out after year end, and we look at a lot of documents, ask a lot of questions. We also do a lot of work remotely. I'm very happy to report that the town staff were very cooperative and provided the information that we needed. The audit has been completed, and we have issued an opinion that is unmodified, which is a clean opinion, that in our opinion, the financial statements of the town of Beaufort are fairly presented in accordance with accounting standards that are required. The financial statements were submitted to the LGC just before Thanksgiving. We are still awaiting the LGC's review and approval of those financial statements, so you do not have the physical books in front of you. However, as soon as we get that LGC approval, we'll have those printed and shipped to you, and also provide an electronic version. I do recommend that you look through those, and if you have any questions about the content of the financial statements, please, you can route any questions through Christy, and she can contact me, or you can contact me directly. My contact information is at the end of the slides. I would like to give you a brief summary of the activity in your general fund. So this chart shows a comparison from 23 to 24. You'll notice the gray, the revenues, did increase by $2.4 million. That's about 19%. And the red, your expenditures, increased about $2.8 million, which is 26% from the prior year. And we'll go into some more details in some later slides. Before we get into the revenues and expenses too far, I want to talk about fund balance. So fund balance is one of the most important measures of the health of a local government. As you know, fund balance is basically your assets less your liabilities. It's what's left over that you can use for what is needed to be spent going forward in the future. Fund balance is not all spendable. It is broken down into several categories. So you have some that is not spendable because it is a prepaid or an inventory, something that is not convertible to cash. You have the restricted category, and that means you can spend it, but you can only spend it on what an outside party has told you to spend it on. A good example of that is your Powell bill money you get that you can spend only on the streets. And then you have two categories which are committed and assigned. Those are board restrictions, so either by resolution or by the budget itself, you can place restrictions on your fund balance that say we want to use these for this purpose. That last category is unassigned, and that is available to the town to decide what to do with in the future. So this is the breakdown of the town's fund balance compared to 2023 compared to 2024. You'll notice it did increase in total. Your total ending fund balance for the year was just over 11 million, compared to 9.9 million last year. If we look at that on the graph, you can see an increase from 22 to 23, and then again in 3 to 24, that $1.3 million increase in your fund balance, and this is in total. So another way to look at fund balance is to look at that available fund balance number, which is a statutory calculation. That is how much the state says that you can actually appropriate into the fiscal year 25 budget and use as that you had on hand at fiscal year 24. So there's how that calculation is done. It's basically your total fund balance less your non-spendable and your restricted by state statute, which are receivables. You don't have them in hand, so you can't appropriate it. And this is the actual calculation of how we get to that number. The available fund balance in 2024 was $9.9 million. That is compared to $8.7 million last year, so it did increase by about $1.2 million. So another way to look at fund balance available is as a percentage of your expenditures, because that will tell you how much of your annual budget you can cover with basically your reserves. And that number is very closely monitored by the local government commission. They have a lot of data about units and being able to compare to your peers. So you can see your fund balance available as a percentage of your expenditures was 79.41 in 22, 71.68 in 23, and then 73.95 in 2024. To put that into context, other units, your peer group, which is more than $10 million general fund budget, average about 46%. And the LGC, they don't have a requirement, but their recommendation is that it be at least 25%. To take a closer look at your revenues, this pie chart shows you where the town's money comes from. So you can see ad valorem taxes are your largest source of revenue at 39%. We have other taxes and licenses at 28%. That's mostly the local option sales tax. Permits and fees is 11%, and then that other category is 22%. That other category is taking up a significantly higher portion of the pie this year than in the prior year, strictly due to proceeds from the sale of property that are included there. Last year, that percentage of other was only 12%. And that also includes investment earnings, and those went up as well from the prior year. So in total, those top three categories of your revenue make up, I have that number somewhere, about 78% of your total revenues, or $11.3 million. So if you look at each of those categories compared to the prior year, you can see ad valorem taxes did increase about 7%. Other taxes and licenses increased about 6%. Your permits and fees stayed about the same. And then you can see that other revenues did increase significantly due to that proceeds from the sale of land or property. Looking at your expenditures, your top category for expenditures are public safety at 47%, your public works and utilities at 11%, general government at 12%, and everything else at 30%. That everything else includes culture and recreation, non-departmental, debt service, things like that. So those top three categories of public safety, public works, and general government make up 70% of your total expenditures, and that's about $9.4 million. If we compare your expenditures year to year, public safety did increase pretty significantly. You did buy a fire truck during the year, so that makes up most of that increase. General government increased about $356,000. Public works increased about $182,000. Again, you had a large capital purchase of a grapple truck, which is most of that increase. And then in the other category here, we also have purchase of land, which is driving that other category up. So switching to your utility fund, Just compared to the prior year, your unrestricted net position did go up to just over 5 million. Your cash flows from operations are still positive, right at, or right under 2 million. Your net income on a GAAP basis, full accrual basis, is 1.1 million. That is down from the prior year, but still positive. And then your total net position did increase from the prior year up to 29 million. Now, one of the things that is monitored very closely for a water fund is the quick ratio. And that is just a comparison of your current assets and your current liabilities, your ability to pay what you owe with what you have. And that quick ratio, the minimum you want it to be is 1, that you have at least enough money on hand to pay what you owe. And the quick ratio for the water and sewer for the past 3 years was 2.95, and then 5.33, and this year at 4.56, still well above the 1. That concludes my presentation. I am happy to take any questions now that you have.
Well, thank you, Ms. Thompson, for that great presentation. We'll start with Commissioner Lopiccolo.
As I was watching your presentation, I was thinking about the bookings of property. So the booking of the sale of the Inlet Inn was on there, as well as the purchase of the property on Live Oak Street in the same
Yes.
time. But we have not booked the additional property purchase on Front Street, right? That's going to be in fiscal year 2025.
There was an adjacent lot also purchased, but I'm not sure if that's what you're talking about.
No, I don't.
Okay.
Okay. So given that, it seems that there was still about $1 million positive with that purchase and loss. So it looks like the town is still being able to increase revenue with that. It was kind of a wash sale, if I remember right. So it really wasn't a big difference between the two property purchases.
The two transactions were very similar in amount, so.
Okay. Can you go back a few slides?
Sure.
As far as expenditures go, I wanted to see what we had for public safety. Obviously, then there was also the purchase of the fire truck in that as well.
Okay, I have the actual numbers for the public safety if you want to.
Sure.
Okay, so in 2023, public safety was 5.7 million, and then in 2024, it went up to 6.4 million.
Okay.
There were some salary and benefit increases in there, but the bulk of that is the purchase of the fire truck. It's about 704,000 was the net increase.
All right. So to me, so that's a jump, but a jump that hopefully will be a one-time for the next several years before we end up purchasing maybe something else.
Yes.
But that's a good place to be. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Gilligan?
No questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Cooper?
I have none but thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome. Thank you,
Thank you.
sir.
Commissioner Oliver?
On slide 12, if you could,
Yes, sir.
remind me, just because I haven't looked, in the general fund, what makes up the 11% public work expenses in the general fund?
That is mostly streets. So that would be the Public Works, if you're looking at the monthly expenditure report that I send you, it's going to be the Public Works Department, sanitation, facilities and grounds. So those 3 departments.
Okay, so
Would be-
just the ones that are not enterprise.
Correct. It does say utilities here, but that has nothing to do with water and
I think
sewer.
that's what caught me off.
Yes.
Okay, I got that. The only other comment I have, and it's just because I haven't been able to wrap my head around it yet, is, to me, slide 5 and slide 8 are a little hard to read one with the other. And because they're not, in comparing the 2 years, they're not picking up the same ones. And I just ask you to relook at those to
Okay.
see if maybe a fuller explanation could be, because they were just, to me, they were confusing going back and forth between the two. But that may well have just been an old age moment on my part. I look forward to your report.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioner Spiegler?
Yes, thank you very much for presenting tonight. So you said we would receive the hard copies of the report once it comes back from the LGC?
Absolutely, we expect that approval. They've been within 1 to 2 weeks so far, and
Okay.
it was submitted prior to Thanksgiving, so I know there's a holiday in there, but we do expect their approval pretty soon, and we'll get those mailed to you as soon as we can.
So possibly before the end of the year? Or,
It's possible.
or if not, probably in January is when?
1st of
okay.
January is more likely,
Okay,
but
thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
I've got one more question.
Sure.
A question regarding the accounts of the town. Are you physically tasked to basically verify those accounts and the monies in those accounts? Do you do that yourself, verify bank statements and so forth?
We obtain copies of bank statements and compare them to what's reported in the general ledger and make sure that they are consistent. We analyze the reconciliation that the town does, which accounts for things that might be different between the bank and the books, and make sure those are reasonable, and we test those. So we don't get verification directly from the bank. We do get bank statements and tie out every cash account that the town has to a bank statement or a bank reconciliation.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions for Ms. Thompson? Well, thank you very much for presenting that report. I really like the detail that you went into and breaking it down a little bit for us so it's not so difficult to understand. And I want to thank you for taking the time. Unless there's any further questions, appreciate your time.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Now we're going to move on to our next presentation, which is Pivot Parking. Get to hear the 2024 parking season, how that went. Where
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to start off by saying, don't look through the whole presentation because I got some trivia for you in there, and you'll cheat and know the answer before I ask
This is
it.
not
So
an open book test,
This
is
is
what you're
not an
saying?
open book test.
The answer is C.
Well, good evening, and thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, for having us, for us to give you information about the 24 parking season. I will say this, we have a lot of information to give you, so take it in, digest it. You may come back with us probably weeks from now and want more answers and have questions, and we're happy to come back and explain even further. And if you want any more intricate detail, we can give you that, but we do have a lot of information to give you tonight. Our presentation will be 2024, where we started, our timeline, the transition, and how we got started, and then the program assessment, revenue, the data, and the expense, and then 2025, what may it look like, and from the data that we collected. Our team, myself, Scott Diggs is CEO, Todd Brocious, our president, Brandon Lauterbach, who just passed out the presentations. He's also EVP out of Virginia, and he's a little bit closer to here than I am, so he has helped tremendously this year. And then we have our district manager, Alicia, and then Michael, who's been the face of Pivot while here, and we appreciate all, and then the enforcement team and such. So we've had a great team. We feel like that they really worked well together and provided the services that we requested. Where did we start? So if you remember back to March 18th of last year is when council approved the parking program and approved a contract with Pivot. That started us in our transition through March through May. And what we coordinated with is updating sign design, setting up the enforcement platform, recruiting, onboarding, establishing the permits. And then May 15th is when we said we would be ready to start. We started with temporary signage, we started with the parking platform, and we actually physically started taking payments as of then, but we did a warning as far as citations initially. And then on May the 25th is when we went full force. Fully staffed, enforcement began with no warnings, and the program was in full effect. Our transition included implementing your approved rate modifications of $1.50 per hour for non-premium and $3 an hour for the premium. The signage was revamped so that it provided the parking information of the codes and the scans and gave some wayfinding information. The mobile payment platform that we used was called Text to Park, where you could text or you could scan. We did create 6 parking codes based on your parking division areas, based on where people would park. Removal of the pay stations. Public Works helped us remove those pay stations. Implemented the digital permit registration, so no more physical permits for those buying season passes, et cetera. The license plate did become the decal, and then paid parking was effective 8 to 5 until October 31st. Next is the mapping that shows you your rates and the codes that were used for that area. So again, you have the Craven and the Queen and the Main are the ones that are, I'm sorry, not Main, the, where am I looking? The 4-hour are the ones that are limitations of a 4-hour maximum. The east and the west lots have no maximum, so you can park for the 9 hours, 8 to 5, and pay for that rate. And then the Main is the hourly rate at $1.50. Total revenue overview. So from May 15th to October 31st, our overall total gross revenue reported was $394,715 versus a budget of $363,938. So we were able to generate revenue to exceed our budget projections by 8.5%. You can see the breakdown there from the Text to Park, which is the hourly parking rates, violation payments, permits that were purchased. And our graph just shows those same figures. Next slide is our transient. So based on per month, again, May, we got started mid of the month. Shows you the difference between the months. Notice that June and July were very similar. 79,000 for each one of those, but we'll break that down a little bit further in some upcoming slides. And then you can see the progression downward from August, September, and October as the season comes to an end. So overall, there were 62,556 transactions recorded. Again, another decipher of the transactions, showing you the transactions per month. May with 5,500, June with 14,000, July with 15,000, and then August 11, September 8, and October 8. So October and September were pretty equal in that relation to the transactions. But then July was your largest month, and again, inclusive of the July 4th, which is what we typically see in the coastal environments. Now I'm going to apologize because this slide and the next slide has a lot of information. We decided to break it out per P code, which is a parking code. So the first one is Craven Street. Again, there's 32 spaces that are designated for this area. For the season, 3,121 transactions were recorded in this area. The average length of stay for this area was 2 hours and 17 minutes. As you see, the season revenue per space was $354 earned for this season. And then if you equate that to the day, there were 169 parking days in this particular season when we went from May 15th to the end of October. So on a per day average, those areas were generating $67 a day for that Craven Street area. We broke it down again, the 4-hour limit. The average length of stay was 2 hours and 12 minutes, even though there's a 4-hour limit. The highest amount of transactions in this area was 26,910 transactions, and the largest amount of total parking spaces is 116. And again, the revenue earned per day for the season was $554 per space. Same breakdown for Main Street area. This is an area that allows for the longer stay, so your average length of stay was 3 hours and 48 minutes. You had 13,779 transactions, and your revenue earned per day was $436 per space. The East Lot is where it's a $3 premium. Average length of stay was 2 hours and 41 minutes, 7,000 transactions. Revenue earned per day was $352 per day. Next slide gives the last two areas, which is the west lot, again, the premium, which is 9,000 transactions, an average of 2 hours and 20 minutes. Revenue earned with $396 per space per day. Queen Street, it's $1.50 an hour, 2,675 transactions, 2 hours and 21 minutes as an average length of stay, and revenue earned is $58. We listed the festivals that the 17th and 18th were right around the mid-time that we started for the music festival. Then you had the Big Rock Tournament and then the Seafood Festival. Again, there's 169 days in this season. In a normal season that would be from March 1st to October, you have 244 parking days. Do I need to stop and answer any quick questions about any of that, or do you want me to keep going? Okay. All right, the next one is your traffic trends, parking sessions per week. You can see that the week of June 30th, which includes July 4th, had your highest amount of transactions for the entire season, but this lets you see the traffic, when it goes up, when it comes down. Some of this may be related to some weather activity that we did have in the region. We had some things going on, so some of that will play into that, but again, it lets you see that traffic trend of the number of transactions that are occurring per week. The next one is showing you what time of day is your highest transactional activity, and the dark blue is your highest transactional volumes. So you have Saturdays starting at the 10 and 11 o'clock. You have Sundays around the same time period. Monday and Tuesdays, you see a lighter blue, and it gets heavier on Thursday and Friday. So you see that transitional time period between the 8 to 5 when the majority of traffic is utilizing your downtown area. Okay, this is where the trivia starts. So as the highest amount of transactions, North Carolina visitors had the highest, 41,638 out of the 62,000. Of the states listed here, one of them is the next leading state number of transactions. Anybody have a guess?
Sarah, you have anything about Ohio?
Virginia. I think it's
Okay.
Virginia.
Okay.
You,
I said Sarah, not Siri.
you are correct. Virginia had 4,356 transactions, and then it proceeds. Pennsylvania was next, Ohio, Maryland, South Carolina, Florida, New York, Tennessee, and West Virginia were the top 10 visiting states where visitors came from. The next one is, though, the average spend of those visitors per state. North Carolina, again, $277 is the average spend of the entire population of visitors for the 41,000.
Parking spend.
Parking spend, yes, parking spend. And then it proceeds down to the other states. What's interesting is that New York and Florida were ranked as a top 10 transactional state, but not as a top 10 spend state. Georgia and Kentucky took over between
What
those
does
two.
that mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand
Yeah,
that
good.
either.
So it means the amount of total revenue generated by visitors from that state, the average spend of someone coming in to pay for parking, that is the amount that they're spending
In one day or?
in the entire season. So visitors from, say, Pennsylvania, visitors from Pennsylvania for the entire season paid an average of $19 for parking.
Oh, for parking.
Yes.
And that's because you know their license plate number. Is that what you're saying?
This information actually comes from credit cards, from the zip codes tied to credit cards, because that is where credit cards are deemed from their home address specifically, not tied to license plates. So the transactional data is based on credit card data.
Which is usually where people live, but not always.
Correct, but it's, when you do license plates only, you have those that did rental cars, and you have, et cetera and so on, so you're not really getting that diverse as to where they're more specific as to where they reside. So that's why we use the zip codes associated to the credit cards. All right, so where did Beaufort, North Carolina visitors come from? Every state in the United States is where they came from. So this tells you how many transactions occurred from each and every state including Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, Guam, and those that have a zip code listed as armed forces. Then we deciphered it into what were your top 20 cities visiting from North Carolina based on transactional data. And so Raleigh had the highest amount of transactions with zip code listed for Raleigh, then Beaufort, then Morehead cities, but we listed it throughout what were the top 20
This
cities.
is credit card also?
This is credit card also. It accounted for 37% of all transactions were the top 20 cities in North Carolina that visited. This next one is actually counting customers, not transactions. But what it is telling us that 42,514 customers paid to park one time. And then it tells us that 33,791 paid twice, had 2 sessions, and so on and so forth. So you look at this as if you add all those 47,290 customers, had 62,556 transactions, and saying that some customers had multiple transactions in multiple locations.
Okay.
Is that also credit card?
That is, yes.
So if you lived here, if you used a different credit card, oh, it doesn't matter because it's the
If it's
same zip
assigned to
code.
the same zip code, what is it going by the zip code?
It's not the credit card number, it's the zip code.
Yeah.
Credit card.
Okay? So that's transient, what we call transient parking information. Next is permits. So the season pass permits currently are $200. A monthly pass is $100. Weekly is $25. And then you have the waterfront residents, that's $800. So the passes sold, 153 of the season passes were sold this year, 12 of the monthly, 93 of the weekly, and 1 waterfront resident pass was sold. Okay? And again, the season passes are valid, but excluding the premium lots. They're not allowed in the premium lots. Quickly on to enforcement, some of our team members. Citation data. So there were 2,059 valid citations written for the season, 591 warnings within that first little time period when we started May the 15th. And then citations paid, 1,700, which means that our overall collection rate is at 82.5%, which is excellent. Industry standards like you to be somewhere between 70 and 74. So we're above average in the collection of unpaid citations. What you will see is failure to pay for parking was the highest amount of citations, and that was 1,959 of that 2,059. So for those that chose to park, did not pay, that received a citation through the season.
It's hard to track why those citations were given. Were people just giving up or being frustrated about paying for the services? Because this is something that's new to the town, and I would hope that that number would not be so high. But, just based on what maybe I was hearing in particular, that people were pretty frustrated with the system and probably just said, I'll probably take the citation, I suppose, but.
It could, honestly, it could. I think it is, again, that's not high compared to a program that is new and evolving and people getting used to the process in itself. I would say that, we also have those that if they did not have a phone or didn't understand that they could call the office, and we would do that, and we did that breakdown, and I didn't put it in here, but we serviced about 1,900 people in our office in order to have their payment made, that did not do their payment by their own phone, whether they didn't have a phone or they needed to pay by cash and didn't have a credit card. So we serviced about 1,900 of the 62,000 transactions, which equates to 3% that came into the office.
Another question about the citations. So I believe you had citations that were also more than $20. And I say that because I received one of them.
You received one?
So I know that personally.
Correct. That's the basis of what an overtime or expired or non-payment of parking then is $20.
But I mean, I believe mine was $50 or more.
Yeah, you went past the.
If you go past, it escalates. So the initial fine is $20, and if you,
I mean, I paid it immediately. I was like, I
Thank
think
you
a
for that.
commissioner needs to pay their parking ticket.
But where were you parked?
I don't remember, honestly,
Okay.
I don't remember.
yeah, it could have been
I was-
depending on what type of infraction it was.
So I guess what I'm saying is the citations start at $20, but you also have higher citations than that.
You do, if you don't pay it within a certain time period, and we'll go over that in a moment. If you
But
don't pay
mine
it-
was higher than 20 immediately.
First shot.
Yeah.
I'd have to see it honestly to be
I
able
just
to.
want to make it clear
Yeah.
that there are citations that are quite high, which, just so we know.
Okay. Yeah, we can, not all of those listed are $20, correct. There are some that are higher infractions based on some of the ordinances and such. Correct. Okay, expense assessment. Our overall expenses came in at $139,000 on a budget of $160,000. Our side listed that as your NOI as $255,000, but that is before any town expenses would have been deducted for that, for any other expenses that the town would have had.
Such as what?
Signage was one for the additional, transition signage that was completed. You don't have any other expenses related to parking or public works or anything like that that would have? No, just the signage and the poles. Signage and poles.
That was our expenditure? We paid for that? Yes. Christie?
The signage you paid for directly, yes.
Were uniforms and travel and so forth, were those included?
All of that's inclusive in that 139.
That was budgeted also? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep. All right. Need me to stop for anything, or do you want me to keep going for 2024 summary and then 2025 objectives?
I think we'll just continue to pepper
Okay.
you throughout, so if you need to ask a question, please don't wait for me to call on you. Just ask questions as we go along.
Okay. So 2024 summary, what did the data tell us? It told us where visitors were coming from, that you had visitors from all 50 states plus. Average length of stay for different sections. What I want to clarify is that is the average when I showed you what the average was, that was the average of all transactions for that area. In the area where there's a 4-hour limit, did we have people buying 3 hours, 4 hours? Yes, we absolutely did. And if you want to see that detailed information, we can happy to give you. I just didn't want to overwhelm you with a lot of numbers and a lot of information tonight. But that is available if you want to see that, especially for the west lot and the east lot, because there was no time limit on how long you could pay to park. We have people that did pay for 9 hours. We did have people that paid for 8 hours. So there are those transactions, but what you saw on that slide was just the average of all transactions. Times of day when the most traffic visits were downtown. Again, weekends are high volume. What areas are utilized the most and what weeks of the season, and showed you that. And then how many visitors paid to park in Beaufort between 8 and 5. Again, the number of transactions. Oh, Beaufort, I'm sorry. Excuse me. That 62,000 transactions occurred, and that is, and let me clarify too, a transaction counts one time. If someone started a session and then they extended their session before their original expired, it still counts as one. But if it expired and then they started a new session, that counts as 2 transactions. So it could be the same person counting as 2 transactions and they never left the spot. if they paid for 2 hours and then they let it expire and then they said, oh, I want to extend or I want to add 2 more hours, then that counts as 2 transactions.
Okay.
For 2025 technology updates, so Text-to-Park has updated their platform and accepting of Apple Pay and Google Pay that'll allow for people to pay in that process. The new part with Text-to-Park is now instead of someone, when they text the code, they were physically having to type in their license plate. We all make mistakes. We put in a wrong number. We do something different. What's new for 2025, it will now have a little thing that says scan plate. And they simply hit that button, take a picture of their plate. It automatically uploads their plate. So no more having to enter your plate and get your numbers wrong and maybe get a citation because you entered your plate incorrectly. And then online permit portal, we're in the process of looking to making the online purchases, making the purchase of permits be online so you don't have to do everything in person and make that an easier process. Permit considerations. The next few slides are giving you information and options to consider. No decisions are to be made today. It is for you just to ponder over, consider, and then think about for next season what could be the possibility. Your current permit for your non-premium areas where your season passes are allowed, your average revenue earned was $415. Your season pass right now is costing $200 and 153 were sold. So your options to consider would be leaving everything as is, leave the season pass at $200 and no cap on the quantity sold. You could consider the current rate, but putting a cap on how many could be sold. You could also increase, and we recommended a $300 rate if you so choose, with no cap, or going with $300 and instituting a cap of $150. Weekly and daily passes should continue to be sold for customers who need those, especially when the Big Rock tournament's here and people are purchasing a week pass. We would recommend to discontinue the waterfront resident pass because you only sold one. There wasn't a demand for those, and so the consideration would be considered to potentially discontinue those. Your current citation fees and escalation schedule. Again, your current fine is $20 with a late fee of $30 after 30 days. So it will start at $20 if not paid. After 30 days, it goes to $50. Comparable markets, again, Atlantic Beach is $50, Surf City's $50, and shows you the escalation there. There is an error there with Carolina Beach. I need to correct that. Their fine is actually $100, but reduced if you pay it within 48 hours. So that is incorrect on that slide there. So what we put before you for consideration is to modify the initial citation amount to $50 with a reduction to $35 if you pay it within 48 hours. To us, we feel that $20 may not be punitive enough to change behavior, to say you need to pay to park, or the goal of citations is to get people to comply to pay to park versus getting a citation. And then a late fee would be applied for $25 if not paid within 30 days. The current ordinances do not appear to account for scofflaw violators, which means if you have someone that's unpaid and they come back next season and they get another ticket, what are we to do about that? So how do we need to go about making sure, does that person need to be booted? Some towns institute booting for unpaid citations, et cetera, and so on. So those are some considerations to consider for next season. Revenue and enforcement model for consideration. Current operations are $1.50 per hour with a 4-hour limit except for Front Street, east of Queen Street, which is unlimited, and then $3 an hour in the east and west slots. It was most recently modified for the 2024 season, and enforcement hours were 8 to 5, Sunday to Saturday. You approved March through October, but we did not get started until May. So options to consider, again, continue with the current rate structure, extend the paid time in enforcement to 6 p.m. versus the 5 p.m., and if you did that, we projected an increase of approximately $2,000 per month for the season. Then option 2 to consider would be if you modified the rates to $2 per hour for non-premium, going from 150 to 2, and then if you modified the premium, going from 3 to 4. If paid and parking and enforcement remained the same hours, 8 to 5, we projected that that income would increase by about $8,000 per month. And then the third option would be to the same rates as the previous option, but extend paid parking to 6 p.m. The increase to that would be approximately $10,000 a month. Again, just for consideration. And then other considerations for 2025, we feel like the 4-hour area needs more signage. That's some of the issue, is that there's not enough signage for them to understand that that area is a paid parking environment and what the rules are. So our recommendation was that we need about 10 more signs for that area for it to be signed appropriately. We also believe that a golf cart purchase for the management, for the staff, would be beneficial so that we could get the customers faster that call, that need assistance, or get around the town in order to help customers when and where necessary. And then, as I just stated about the scofflaw, implementation of ordinances for repeat offenders and unpaid citations. And with that, I know that's a lot of information. Open for questions, comments, et cetera, and so on.
And I just want to let the commissioners know that this will be a topic that will be at our board retreat.
I was about to say.
So we're going to be able to dive into that because we're going to be starting parking season shortly after that, and our board retreat's in February.
Okay.
So we'll definitely have some questions for you tonight, but I think we'll go into a little bit deeper.
Okay.
Because we're just getting this
Yep.
right now. So I'll start with Commissioner LaPiccolo if he has any additional comments.
Well, thank you. That was a lot, and a lot to digest. My brain is like bouncing around
Yep.
here, thinking of all these different questions I have and different ways of looking at this. I appreciate what you've done and what you've put together. And first, just want to say that obviously for the town, when we're doing this, and I know sometimes I get negative feedback from people in town regarding parking, now that about the town just trying to get money and gain money. But to me, parking, and hopefully to everyone here, parking is about keeping the spaces open, moving people around so that people are not just parking downtown in spots long-term and occupying places in front of businesses that we want to see activity at. So with that being said, when I look at all this, I kind of look at this as how can we, how can we improve that? And we want to make sure that there's a good experience for the people who come to visit. Obviously, you said that most of the people who are coming to our town are coming for a one time. They've used it for one time, and they've stayed in that space one time. So to me, increasing the penalty for that, I think is really not going to really do any justice. If anything, I think it's going to give a bad taste in people's mouths by having a really large fine, and then thinking, well, Beaufort just wanted to, just get some more money from me, and to me that doesn't make as much sense. I'd look at this as, when are we having the highest number of people downtown? Are we occupying spaces for very long periods of time? What can we do to try to encourage people to come here, but also not spend extremely long periods of time, 4 hours, 5 hours in a space, and take up that time? And I didn't know if there was even opportunity for dynamic pricing during that time, because to me, a small amount may not encourage that turnover, but maybe a little bit higher might. And as I said, it's not about gaining money and trying to make money, but to encourage that turnover of the space is really the thing I'm thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had an experience with that?
We do not at this moment have locations that are doing dynamic pricing in an on-street environment. It's a little bit easier to provide dynamic pricing when you're in a controlled, kind of gated garage environment, because you know specifically your number of ins and your number of outs and that kind of thing. So in an environment where on-street would be dynamic pricing, again, meaning when you have a high demand, your pricing changes because of that demand. So that takes a little bit more from a technology standpoint, knowing of how you know specific areas and what your density is so that you can then apply those dynamic pricing structures. So not that it's unfeasible, but it takes a little bit more in the technology spectrum in order to be able to provide that information.
Okay. One of the things I also heard as feedback from residents and visitors was the signage. Obviously, I think you're right, we needed some more signs out on the streets. I think they were difficult for some people to even recognize that there was parking. But also sign height, I think, was also an issue, and the location of the QR codes. I think I'd seen, sometimes with the sun going down on Front Street, residents were having difficulty looking up, trying to scan while the sun was setting. And I think there was some difficulty with that, so that'd be something to
I think
to
our
consider, too.
assessment is that the QR code can be much bigger, so that it's again, you don't have to have, you can scan, you can zoom in and it'll take it, but it could be a little bit bigger, I think, in that relation. And we try to negate, fraud from QR codes, which everyone sees, is why we have them up so high, so that nobody can go slap a QR code bogus sticker on it when it's up high.
Regarding the number of permits or seasonal permits, how many spots are available for just the seasonal permits that were issued? Within those parking lots, are we seeing that there's really not any available spaces in those parking lots, or is there, what's the ratio? Do you know that number?
I don't know, we can go dig a little bit deeper because we would just have to go in and search those license plates that are assigned to those season passes.
Okay.
And go check and see what we were able to see. I don't know that, to my knowledge, there's not a designated number of spaces within your program that says this is the only ones that season pass parkers can park at. So I don't think that's a part of it. Does that make sense?
Okay. So the season passes can park anywhere?
They can park anywhere except for
Except.
the premium lots.
Except the premium
Correct?
lots?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so just to know the ratio between the number of
Okay.
spots and those, that'd be good to know.
Okay.
And then how many operators are available with the call center? There is a phone number available, and that number was small. But if someone calls, like in peak season, when you have thousands of people here, do you have an off-site call center? Do you have just somebody in the office? What's the availability for that phone number for people to call and say, hey, I don't have a credit card.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't have credit cards. I don't have means to pay. Is there someone that can help me here?
Yeah, the telephone number dials directly to the office. Is it the specific cell phone that we have? It rolls over to the cell phone. So it dials to the office and then it rolls over to a cell phone if they get a busy signal.
Okay, so is there just one person that's assigned to then meet that person there?
There is as of today, but we can also roll it over to a larger to our main system if necessary.
Okay.
But I don't know that we had any issues with folks not being able to get to someone.
Okay, so there was not a large, do you know the number of calls that you had to that?
I do not know number of calls.
Okay.
I do know someone has called me,
Okay,
and I had to transfer that phone call over because they couldn't get anybody. They wound up calling a town, and somehow it tracked to my number for the mayor.
Okay.
And I was able to transfer that over to Michael, who took care of it pretty quickly. But that was just one incident where it did
Okay.
come to me.
okay.
One of the things I also did notice was the number of, I guess we're tracking by credit cards, but we don't have a good idea of the number of spots that are being occupied by golf carts versus vehicles, right, regular vehicles.
If it's a regular golf cart, they don't have a license plate. LSV has a license plate that we can track, but a regular golf cart does not have a license plate. So
Right,
how
say
are
that,
we
say that
doing?
again?
It does?
We have
We
town
have,
plates.
we have town
You have
plates.
town plates. Okay,
Yeah.
so you are tracking those.
There are 18 registered golf carts
Okay.
this season.
Okay, but do we have a number of,
Seems like more.
all right, but do we have the number of golf carts that are occupying spots downtown, like as a ratio of vehicles to cars? I mean, golf carts to cars?
We would have to
Yeah,
dig a
I
little bit
understand.
deeper. I
Okay.
don't know that as of tonight.
And my concern for that, or my thoughts regarding that are, often you see one golf cart in a space. And if there is thoughts about maybe changing configuration of spaces to allow for two golf carts to park side by side, and I know some of the spaces, even on Turner Street, they could also park kind of like diagonal to occupy even three in a parking space. I think that would help, because I think that's one of the
With the
complaints I
yeah.
often have is when we're
Is that
we're
one
full,
golf cart's taking up?
is one
homes.
golf cart, yeah,
We
it's
did
taking up
that in
space.
one of our other cities, and we did a program called Share the Space.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what it is, you paint a dotted line through the middle of the space, and then that designates that one space can have two golf carts in it, so that it's not just one golf cart taking up a space. So that is a potential that we could look at.
Yeah, I'd like to see that implemented in some way somehow,
Okay.
so, okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Gilligan?
So do we, I know you didn't have it in the presentation, but do you have a sense of what the most failures to pay were due to? Do we have a sense of if it was because people didn't see the signs, or they were having trouble with the technology, or?
I do not have that answer because I'm not able to, we've issued the citation unsure as to if that person simply just chose not to pay or if they had issues. That's not something that our system would know because we don't have any other way to get in contact with that person.
Right, I guess anecdotally, like, do you have or the on-the-ground people have a sense of what that might have been?
I would say most of the people were ignoring the signs, or we saw some of the signs that were turned around due to people that just didn't want to pay.
Okay, so some of it was purposeful, and they knew they were supposed to pay. Okay. The 1,900 that paid over the phone, do we know where they're from, or can we understand where they were from?
We do not take that information when they come into the office. So we know that the way that we do that is we go onto the web, we make the payment through a Pivot credit card and take their cash. So we know that zip code was assigned to those that were coming into the office.
So people who paid by phone were all cash? There weren't any credit cards over the phone?
Did we have any? No, it was all cash, right? Yeah.
Okay, so that's my concern. So, like, for example, and you've probably heard me say this before, my mother cannot park downtown during parking because she has a jitterbug flip phone with the big keys. She can't pay for parking. And so I was just curious where the people are from. I've heard one of the complaints from locals, and especially older people or people who want a more simplistic phone, is they feel like they can't park downtown at all. And I guess my impression was that when they called the number, that they could give their credit card number over the phone and it could be punched in manually somehow. So that's not an option?
Taking a credit card over the phone does not comply with some of our PCI compliance. It's a security issue in that sense.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm really
Yeah.
concerned about excluding some of our locals. And people who travel into town, but more concerned about our local residents. And like I said, my mom can't park many blocks away because she can't walk that far.
There has to
And
be
so
a
her and her
means.
friends don't come down here anymore, and that's sad. And I know that's the case with many other people.
Do you find, I do have a question. Do you find that taking your mother, for instance, that she's okay with inserting a card like at a gas station and a pay station kind of scenario? That is okay, and they feel and she feels comfortable doing
Yeah.
that? Okay.
Yep. She just can't use the technology like a smartphone if she can't understand the
Okay.
smartphone.
Okay.
Or the text to pay. And the cash, I don't think people are aware that they can pay cash unless they call the number. The number said, if you need help. It doesn't say if you need to pay with another form of payment or what it really is that they're getting help with.
Okay.
I think, and I know that would involve producing more signs or just putting a sticker over it at the bottom of the sign that makes it more clear that people could call to pay with cash if they needed to. But I know that you don't want to increase the number of cash
Yeah.
transactions because
Yeah.
that makes it harder. Let's see. Did y'all get feedback through website or calls or anything, like complaints? Or was there a summary of complaints or a main topic of complaint that we could do better on?
I think that is something that we need to work on for 2025. I think we were focused on getting the system to work and getting the knowledge out there and how do people pay to park. I think from an environment of feedback, what we do have the ability to do is everyone that made a payment through the text to park, we have a cell phone number. So we can do automated surveys to each and every parker that did a payment. Through that, we can send surveys.
That's interesting. Thank you.
Commissioner Cooper?
I think I may wait till we do our workshop, but I'm, the number of violations, do you have a specific number, exactly how many that was, or did I miss it?
It was
MAC team one?
2,050, hang on a second. It was 2,059 written citations. 1,700 have been paid.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, that did. Yeah, I think I'm gonna just wait for our workshop.
Okay. It's probably best. Okay. Commissioner Oliver?
I think it would be a good idea to try to quantify we can call them complaints or suggestions, whatever way. I think that would be a good
Okay.
effort and report back, because I think that'd be a good measurement for us.
Okay.
Do you have any way from this data or other data to know, again, it may have to do with dynamic pricing or whatever, but to get any measurement on the availability of parking during different times? In other words, do you have, I wasn't smart enough to read that into here. Am I missing it in here, or is there some more data?
I think what you're asking for is an occupancy count.
Yes, ma'am.
Is occupancy at certain times of the day.
Yes, ma'am.
So there's a factor that we don't record. We're recording when a session starts and when a session ends.
Transaction,
And
right.
transaction and where it's at. So, and a lot of times when you're looking for occupancy, what you're needing is to know when that space becomes open, when
Right.
someone leaves. A lot of times, again, related to technology, how do we know when that space becomes open? So there's a couple of different options that we can start looking at. Some require sensors and some require cost. Some are cameras that will shoot down the row and counts cars automatically. There's also an automated, what we call license plate recognition system.
Yep.
That can be attached to a golf cart. And as we're riding around, it's going ding, 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 ding. It's counting all the spaces that are open and cars in it.
All right.
So that is something that I think initially we wanted to just kind of get a handle on the parking. And then as we move forward, what kind of data are we really looking for? What are we really striving to get? And that could be a recommendation. You know, an LPR system does cost. The cost of an LPR system alone is somewhere about $70,000.
Right.
In order to give you that particular type of information.
And I'll share with you, I'm looking forward.
Okay.
I'm comfortable, I'm comfortable looking forward on it.
Okay, yep.
I think those are the two, thank you, I think those are the two things that I would.
And I'll say, I think you had a question previously
Yes, ma'am.
about
Same
same
one.
logic, and I'm working through a couple of things. What I can tell you is that you had 62,000 transactions.
Right.
We had 61,767 plates registered.
Right.
So what we've got to go back and look at is, we know that of that 61,000 plates, about 21,000 of those plates had multiple sessions, whether it was on the same day or multiple days.
Right.
So there's a little deciphering of how many of those 61,000 plates, again, were repetitive users and how many were not.
Right. And the other thing that I would, coming back perhaps to the question that you were talking with Commissioner Gillikin, is even those of us who are aged are getting used to the tap with a credit card. And if there's a technology, even if it meant that we had to walk 10 more feet to use a tap credit card, I think that's something that I would ask you to look into. 'Cause
Very, We will, and I think, where we are today with the technology and the industry is moving away from equipment to a point.
Yes, ma'am.
But there are technologies that now are coming in. There are some new pay stations.
Right.
And literally, instead of it being a pay station that stands, this high, it's attached to a post and it's
Right.
this big, and you're right, it has a tap reader.
Right.
And so and the difference is integrating that into the payment platform so that the enforcement knows this person paid.
Right.
So it's also recognizing that we're doing it by plate. So if someone goes to a pay station, you have to remember your plate number, you have to enter your plate number.
Or there's space. I mean, I
Yeah.
can almost remember it and walk 20 feet. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's
Okay.
I think that's something that I would,
Okay.
that I
We
think
can
would-
definitely
I think-
provide
I
that.
think it would lower your complaint level a lot if people could just take their credit card and go over, they do the gas station now and tap the deal.
Okay.
I think your complaint level would change materially.
Okay.
I do congratulate you both in the revenue side and the expense side of exceeding revenue on the budget and having your expenses coming in there. That's commendable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Spiegler?
I guess I'm the last one that gets to talk. I did want to say thank you. This was a really great presentation, really well done, lots of really good information, really easy and clear to read, so thank you. I do agree with Commissioner LaPiccolo. I think we've all talked about how we want to make sure we're turning the spaces over. That's really the intent of this program for us, is to make sure we're helping the businesses with that turnover and people can experience downtown. I really liked what Commissioner LaPiccolo said. It's really important to us in this town that people have a good user experience downtown. That maybe more, can't really speak for other towns, right? But I know that that's really important for us here. So I guess maybe I just did a little bit of research on my phone and looked back on my experience with my parking ticket.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, it did leave a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth at the time. It was partly my fault. I was in a rush. I had a work meeting downtown. I went to park downtown. I paid my $1.50 per hour plus the 50-cent convenience fee, which I think we need to make sure we recognize, because that was nowhere in here, that every time you pay for parking, even in the same spot, you pay a convenience fee. So even if it's $1.50 an hour, it's really $2 an hour or $3.50 an hour. So I paid my $2 an hour, which is $1.50 for the parking and then the 50 cents convenience fee. Ran to my work meeting at a local restaurant, came back to my car and realized that I had, I guess, parked in a spot I was not supposed to. And that was probably my fault. It may or may not have been well marked that I wasn't supposed to park there. I may have been really busy. Who knows? It was summertime, busy. So in addition to paying for my $2 parking fee, I then got a $50 parking citation, which I paid within 5 days, and it cost me $53.50. There must have been another convenience fee or processing fee. So I ended up paying $55.50 for, it was honestly a mistake.
Yeah.
I did not realize, I didn't do it on purpose. I would not have parked there. I would have walked.
Well, and I will say,
And that
just
is
so
my
that the
fault. I
public
do take
knows
that,
too, is
yeah.
there is the appeal process that people do. And it says on your citation, you have the right to appeal. So, and we consider every appeal, based on what the reasoning and such and so on.
Yes,
So,
but probably a commissioner should not go and say, oops, I made a mistake, right? I made an honest mistake, so I paid it very quickly. I just want to make sure, I'm just telling that story because I want to make sure we're having good user experiences downtown and make sure we're taking into account the convenience fee too when we think about rates for this upcoming year. But again, thank you. This is really great information, and I think you'll see we all like the data up here and we like looking at it and thinking about what
I
it
didn't
means.
want to overwhelm you, but I said, let me give you some basics, but I'm sure there'll be more questions because, we can go way deep and it's how do you decipher really the information, so.
Yeah.
And Elizabeth, this will get to you electronically and to us quickly.
At some point in time? Okay. Well, thank you, Commissioner Spiegler, for being able to share that story. I think it's one that has
It's a little
been...
embarrassing, but
Don't be embarrassed because this is a human experience and we're also into a learning curve. So this is how we learn. Unfortunately, there came at a cost, but she won't do it again, I can tell you that.
I'll try hard not to. I will actually probably ride my bike next time. That was my biggest mistake.
I know that we kind of started the season behind the 8 ball. There was a lot of catching up to do. I do want to just say how grateful I was that you hired local. I don't want that to be overlooked. I think Michael Smith was a great addition to his little tiny office, but
Little office with the best view of any
Absolutely.
offices that we
It
have.
has a window, so what can I tell you? You can barely open the door and sit at the same time, but it has a window. But I've actually seen him working with people and ironing out things. I want to thank you very much so for working with our garden club, letting them be able to take care of our town. So I know that was a lot of back and forth, but I think we've come up with some solution that was going to be workable for them, and I want to thank Michael for that. Interested in what we can talk about, I think Commissioner Oliver came up with a good solution, hopefully, that you can add to some of the suggestions on how that we can really take a look at getting people that user experience and being able to pay for parking. It looks like people are paying for parking. I mean, the numbers are showing that. And then those who turned the sign around got a violation. But it looks like people are interested in doing that. When we start the season, I'm hoping that we'll see more improvement, less violations, and more compliance. And then getting people out there. The ambassadors were great. They were very
Yeah, and I think
patient.
we will have, as we start with the new season, we can definitely do a big public outreach program. Social media is the only way to advertise almost nowadays. So making sure that, you know, what we've done in some other areas is we create a social media video. How do I pay to park? Let me show you how to do that. So I think there are some more marketing efforts that we can work with you all in making sure that it is effectively advertised, and not only from a standpoint of just the locals, but reaching out to those where we know they came from so that they know that that particular information is available as well.
And you made some suggestions for us to look at, and would like for you to come back to us to see if and this will be a decision that we'll have to make as a board, but looking for some guidance on how we could actually help with our locals who want to feel that, you know, I live in this town, I'm full-time, I want to be able to go downtown to support. I know I've got to deal with sharing it with visitors, but what can we do to somehow incentivize that?
Okay.
So I know you guys have got some experience with that, and if you can bring that option to the table for us to hear, that would be great as well.
Okay, perfect.
Any further questions for Ms. Reed? Beaufort, North Carolina.
Beaufort, thank you. Thank you.
All righty, now for those who have been waiting to make that public comment, do we have anybody who has signed up for public comment? Okay. All right, Mrs. Coles. And if you just state your name and address for us, please.
I am Cheryl Tolles. I live at 1010 Broad Street. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here this evening. I'm here tonight regarding public sidewalks that are disappearing in the public right-of-way on Front Street. Town public sidewalks that have been removed by private homeowners at 105 and 113 Front Street. This has occurred on the north side of Front Street, immediately in front of these homeowners' properties. Before these town public sidewalks were removed, people walking on the north side of Front Street could walk on contiguous sidewalk all the way to and from the West End turnaround area without having to cross over Front Street. But now, the public, regardless of whether they have mobility, vision issues, or any other impairment, children, the elderly, people in wheelchairs, people pushing strollers, these folks must now all cross over from the north side of Front Street to the south side of Front Street 2 times to get to and from the downtown bench to the town benches and the viewing area at the West End turnaround area where we have enjoyed for years. It's even worse for people walking on the south side of Front Street who must now cross over Front Street 4 times to stay on sidewalk to get to and from the Front Street West End right-of-way viewing area and the town benches. While you're thinking about this, keep in mind that 1, there is a documented 66-foot public right-of-way in this area of Front Street that would apply to both of these properties. 2, these public sidewalks have been in existence on Front Street in front of these two homes for about 100 years. This is a violation of the Town of Beaufort Code of Ordinance, Section 90.08, which states, quote, "No person shall injure, deface, or mar in any manner whatsoever any of the streets or sidewalks of the town," end quote. 4, North Carolina State Statute 168-296 states that cities have, quote, "the duty to keep the public streets, sidewalks, alleys, and bridges in proper repair," end quote, and, quote, "the duty to keep the public streets, sidewalks, alleys, and bridges open for travel and free from obstructions." 5, the 105 property owner's own deed states the property is subject to the right-of-way of Front Street, and their own survey shows the removed sidewalks were not even inside their property lines. Please explain to the Beaufort citizens how allowing private homeowners to remove town public sidewalks that were installed by the town, are in the Front Street right-of-way, have been in public use for 100 years, the removal which is in violation of the Beaufort Town of Ordinance and in violation of state statutes, as well as in direct conflict opposite of the Beaufort Comprehensive CAMA Land Use Plan, the Beaufort ADA Transition Plan, the Beaufort Bike and Walk Plan, the Beaufort Parks and Rec Plan, where this plan describes the, quote, "Front Street route," end quote, as, quote, "the route is located on both sides of Front Street, from the roundabout on the western end past Gordon Street to the eastern end of Front Street," end quote. This sidewalk removal is also in opposition of what the design guidelines for the Beaufort Historic District and Landmark dictates. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Ms. Tolles. Anyone else signed up for public comment? All righty. Now we're going to move on to new business. We've got case number 24-12, the preliminary plat, final plat for 360 Steep Point Road.
Mr. Kyle Garner, Town Planner, will give you the background information.
Thank you, Mayor. As you stated earlier, this is case number 2412, and this is a preliminary and a final plat for 360 Steep Point Road. I know I normally can clear our audience, but I didn't know.
You're doing better than you think.
Yes, ma'am. So our property location is 360 Steep Point Road, and I have a vicinity map which shows that this is what we would classify as a flag lot, showing a skinny portion that gains access to a larger portion on the water area off of Steep Point Road. The owner is Mr. Wayne Noonan, and it says subdivide a 2.15 acre tract into two lots, but it's actually a little bit larger. It's a little over 2.5 acres. The zoning is R20. It is R20 residential. They are requesting to subdivide it into two lots, and the existing use is partially developed because there is a residential structure there, and water and sewer is provided by County Environmental Health. And as you have included in your packet this evening, which I would like part of the record to show that they have obtained permits from the county for an additional septic system as well as a water system. The reason why this is actually coming before the board is that this is considered a major subdivision. Beaufort is unique in that we only have two types of subdivision classifications. You have an exempt subdivision, which is statutorily by the state of North Carolina, which gives you four or five criteria in which statutorily a person can subdivide their property by right. In Beaufort, if you do not meet that criteria, then anything else is considered as a major subdivision. So in this particular case, even though the property owner has a piece of property that is 2.5 acres plus or minus, they are thrown into the major category. Some other communities, most other communities have a in-between or a middle type of subdivision, which they have, which is called an in-house subdivision, that's been discussed here before. You're probably going to see that again when you're updating your UDO. But in this particular case, because it is major, we look at all criteria. And as part of our technical review process, which we encourage the applicant in the first bullet to speak with our fire department, it is considered as a private drive leaving Steep Point Road. And as part of that, they are required to have at least a width of 20 feet in, or a driveway, or the drive be at least 20 feet in width and be improved to accommodate at least 75,000 pounds for one of the public safety apparatus. The police department also requested that a road sign be placed adjacent to Steep Point Road to identify it as a private drive as well as the name. And of course, I could not leave out Ms. Johnson's favorite category as well as one of the board members. The recreation fees for this site, if it were to be approved, would be in the amount of $188.28, and that would be collected at the time of the recordation or the signing of the plat. The next slide that we have for you is actually the survey to the right, which shows how the property is currently used and the proposed layout showing the private drive. And then the slide to your, or the photo to your right is an actual taken from the county's geographic information system, showing the property. It's outlined in blue as exactly where the existing structure is, and again, showing where that access would be to Steep Point Road. So these, other than the items that were brought up, the staff did not have any other issues, and my understanding is, even though I was not in attendance at the planning board meeting in November, that this was recommended unanimously by the planning board for approval. And what we have now for you folks is discussion on the preliminary and final plat and a decision. And the applicant is here this evening. And at this time, Madam Mayor, if it's all right, I'll be glad to entertain questions.
Okay, well, we'll have questions for staff first, and then we'll have an opportunity to have the applicant speak on their behalf. We'll start with Commissioner Lopiccolo.
Thank you, Mayor Harker. Kyle, I know in town, we do not allow for flag lots. So how does this differ from a flag lot in our community?
Actually, you do allow for them in your ordinance in an R20 zoning district.
In R20?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Commissioner Gilligan?
No questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Cooper?
None.
Thank you. Commissioner Oliver?
Just a couple nuisance questions. What would be the, for instance, over in the right side here, what would be the surface of that area which is shown as a 20-foot road access? What would the surface be?
That would be up to the owner. My understanding is that so long as it is an approved surface by the fire department, that could withstand that 75,000 pounds.
Over the entirety of that?
Over the entire area, yes, sir.
Okay. And this would be a lot split? In other words, it would be two separate recorded lots?
Yes, sir. It certainly would.
That's the only questions I had. Thank you.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
sir.
Commissioner Spiegler?
Thank you, Kyle. No questions.
All righty. And does anybody have any questions of the applicant? Okay, seeing that there's none, thank you, Kyle, appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Okay. Well, when it comes down to the, go ahead. Well, when it comes to case number 24-12, the preliminary final plat, I'm open for discussion. Okay.
Madam Mayor, I believe the applicant would actually.
Oh, he would
if
like to
he-
say, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on your toes there.
Good evening. My name's Alex Bully. I appreciate y'all having me here. Kyle and I have been working on this for about 10 months now, and we've got it here to this point where we're asking for your approval. After we submitted the preliminary and final plat, but before this meeting is when we learned about the 20-foot wide. 75,000 pound compaction rating requirement from the fire department. I met with the fire marshal, and I've met with the chief too, who's here, but I met with the marshal and discussed that with him. And, he told me that, he would like to do what he could to help me, but that the regulation was the regulation, and that essentially what I would need to do is ask the board for a variance on the road requirement. And I looked in your town ordinance as it, applies to subdivisions. In Section 6, this board does have the authority to grant a variance when strict compliance would cause an undue hardship. And I would submit to you that strict compliance with this requirement is not just undue, it's extreme hardship. What you have here is a family-to-family transaction. I married into this family. I moved to Beaufort and met my wife, got married. We just welcomed our daughter, our first child, in November. Her father, Wayne, is the property owner. He's here. He's offered to give her this parcel of land so that we can build a house and continue to live here in Beaufort. But with this road requirement, essentially going to make this project impossible. I mean, not just the financial burden of 20-foot wide, 75,000 pound compaction, which the fire marshal told me could remain gravel, but it will destroy the natural beauty of this property. When you turn on 360 Steep Point Road, which this property was originally a horse farm, so you turn on it, beautiful white painted fence that lines the driveway, oak trees, giant pecan trees that scatter, this property. I mean, you're talking about gone to build a 20-foot wide road. You're gonna have to cut all that down. When I started this project with Kyle and my father-in-law, we talked about the barn that you can see in the photo that's existing. We were told, you could apply for a special use permit, renovate that barn, and you won't have to make any improvement to the road. But the problem with that is that, well, there's several problems. I mean, first of all, renovating that barn there's no way to go out. The only way to go is up. You're going to block our neighbor's view of the water. That's going to significantly devalue their property, and it's going to make them very angry. You understand that the way we've proposed it, the house will sit, it's my left of that barn. There's a temporary structure there. That wooded area could be cleared. It's mostly brush, the wax myrtle and stuff like that. It's going to be out of the way of their view. They can't see through that brush anyway. So they would be fine with this. But renovating that barn, not so much. So if you'll look at Section 6, I didn't bring a copy for you, but you can find it online. I did. The board can grant this variance. They must take into account the nature of the proposed subdivision. I think it's unfortunate that we fall into a major subdivision category. As Kyle said, y'all may be reviewing this ordinance and putting minor exceptions for minor subdivisions, especially when it's family to family. The fire marshal mentioned that to me. Of course, that won't help me today, but something to consider that y'all may be changing the rule. So I don't think you're going to be creating a precedent that's going to end up hurting you down the road. You're essentially talking about building a guest house to my in-laws' house. The reason we can't just build it right now is also because of that barn, right? You can only have 2 structures on a property. So in order for us to build a house, we have to subdivide. We've been trying to follow all the proper steps. Like I said, we've been working on this for 10 months. I brought my surveyor with me, Mr. Wade Davenport. I've engaged consultants. I've talked with consultants with CAMA. We've jumped through all the hoops that have been required of us. We've met with the county. They've approved the septic and well. The final step is essentially this driveway. And what I would be asking you to do is to grant a variance approve this subdivision with the existing driveway. If we build the driveway, I know of at least 2 fully mature, several hundred-year-old pecan trees that are going to have to come down, including a pine tree. You can see them on front of that barn. I think that's reason enough to grant it. I don't think the board really is in the position of forcing strict compliance with their rules to destroy the natural beauty of this area. Now, I'll point out, this is in your ETJ, right? But my wife is a business owner in Beaufort. She owns Southern Frock. She owns the building at 517 Front Street. It does have a residence above it. She is a taxpaying resident of the town of Beaufort. So this is something where we want to continue to live here. I'll point out that 517 Front Street, when she bought it, they tore it down to the slab and rebuilt it. Brick by brick and painstakingly detailed to comply with the town's historic requirements and the town's regulations. I would submit to this board that that building is one of, if not the only building built in modern era that you wouldn't be able to tell that it wasn't built during the historic period. And that's a direct quote from your planner, Kyle Garner. And he worked directly with the applicant, my father-in-law, Wayne. And that's a testament to the work that Wayne did to build it back. So essentially, I mean, that's what you're dealing with. We're trying to comply with the board's requirements and the town's requirements. Like I said, it's a family-to-family transaction, essentially a guest house. In order for y'all to grant this variance, you're going to have to make findings of fact for 4 specific points. You think about the nature of this subdivision, the existing use, the number of persons to reside. Now, currently, you have Wayne and his wife Betsy that live back there. If we renovate the barn, make no improvements to the road, you'll add 3 residents. I'm not certain what difference that would make to the fire marshal or to the board, whether we build a brand new structure or renovate an existing barn. I would submit that a new structure would be safer. But something else you should know is that since our daughter was born 5 weeks ago, we've essentially been living with my in-laws at 360 Steep Point. We're first-time parents, new parents, navigating, that they've been a huge help to us in allowing us to live there. So when we leave this meeting, we're going home to 360 Steep Point Road, and if it catches fire, the fire marshal's coming, and there'll be 5 people back there. If you approve this variance in this subdivision, and the house catches fire, the fire marshal's coming, and there'll be 5 people back there. So you're not talking about any additional burden. And I told all of that to the fire marshal, and I think that was when he said, you need a variance. You need to talk to the board. So y'all do have the discretion. The 4 points that you have to consider are special circumstances or conditions affecting the property such that strict application would deprive the applicant of the reasonable use of his land. You think about the reasonable right of the owner to give a piece of his property to his daughter so that she can raise her family there, and then as they age, take care of her parents. I mean, that's essentially what we want to do. The variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of substantial property rights. The quiet use and enjoyment for sure, preserving that natural beauty. If you ask my father-in-law, he'll tell you when they pulled on to that property the first time, it was that beauty is what struck them, why they ended up buying it. They didn't even need to see the house that's at the end of the driveway to know that that's where they wanted to live. And they've been there 10 years? 14 years. So they're going to continue to be there. We want to be there with them. They have a right to convey. I mean, those are your basic fundamental property rights. Circumstances giving rise are peculiar to this parcel. We started this process, we were told the driveway is 411 feet. It's 11 feet too long to just slide in under y'all's rules. And Kyle will correct me if I misstate that. The other problem was you needed 40 feet of road frontage, and we had 31, because you had to have 20 feet for each one. But interestingly enough, my wife and eventually our daughter will own both of these parcels one day, hopefully many, many decades from now. I think that is peculiar to this particular tract, that regardless, she will own both. And I think the idea is that we raise a family in one day we'll live in the other, and hopefully our daughter will raise her family in the house that we build, hopefully next year. Also, the point about the barn, you could renovate that. That barn is what also is keeping us from just building the house without involving the town. Finally, you must, and this is the most important, granting the variance will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare, or injurious to other property in the territory. Look, the fire marshal said, he would like to help us, but the regulation is the regulation. As I stated, we're currently staying there. If we renovate that barn, we'll be staying there. It will not add any additional people that the fire department will have to service. But I do believe and submit to the board that a new structure is safer than renovating an old barn. You run power to it, modern appliances. I think he'll be quicker back there putting a fire out than in the alternative. But perhaps, more important than that perhaps, if you deny this variance, I believe that will be injurious to the other property owner, the neighbor. By the way, they're on board with us building this house. I don't believe they would be on board with us renovating improving the driveway to the standard that's required. Not only will it, destroy the beauty of the driveway, which they enjoy, but as I was stating, it's going to block their view. It's going to severely decrease the value of their property if they can't see the water. And while technically we don't have to think about their right to look across our property to see the water, certainly we are going to. You can't put a premium on having good neighbors. We enjoy excellent neighbor relations with them. If y'all will grant this variance and this subdivision, allow us to build this, we'll continue to be lifelong residents here in Beaufort. That's what we want to do, raise our family here. And the other thing I'll add is that, I've already engaged with the contractor locally out of Harkers Island. We plan on buying the materials locally, benefit the economy here. I think you could add a stipulation that if there were ever to be more than 2 residents, the road would have to be built. You wouldn't have to worry about that because we had no intention of building another one. We have no intention of selling. This is not a situation where I'm a son-in-law who's going to take a half acre and sell it, take a quick $500,000 and skip town. You're not going to have to worry about that. When I moved down here to be the assistant district attorney, the first person that I met, and I just wanted to point this out, was Captain Troy Edwards. He came to my office and welcomed me. And so just in closing, I just want to say thank you for recognizing him. Thank you for considering this proposal. And let me know if you have any questions.
Well, thank you, Mr. Pulley, for sharing the backstory for your situation. But I'll see if the staff, I've got a question for the staff. If Kyle, can you come up and maybe before we bring Mr. Pulley back up? Based on, and I'll let the Board of Commissioners make their questions too, but based on what we're asking to approve today, I'm hearing a variance. I mean, are we pivoting? What is the process? I mean, because it looks like we're looking at approving a final plat, but then there's a variance that's being requested. Is that a separate process?
I believe it would be, and I would ask legal counsel to weigh in on that, but I think that they are 2 separate processes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So what is the board being asked of today?
notices.
an evidentiary hearing, things like that. Notwithstanding the very persuasive statement given tonight, that dot those i's and cross those t's. So if the applicant is willing and the board would like to consider this variance, I think you just put it on the next agenda. That will give staff and legal time to do the notices and things like that, and have it back before the board for your consideration. But the applicant is exactly right. This board is entitled to give the variance, but we do have to process those, follow those procedures. It's not a board of adjustment variance.
So does the applicant need to put in an application for a variance?
Is there a separate application, Kyle?
There is not, Mr. Grady, for a subdivision variance because in my 17 years, this is actually the first time this has ever happened. So we've never had someone apply. I would believe that they could use the standard application form and we could go from there. But some of the criteria, of course, are different, but we can work out the paperwork piece.
Or we
But
could just consider the statement tonight as the verbal application, since we don't have a set process. And
Okay.
okay.
understanding that, and there's time restraints, I know we would want to get this back before the board as quickly as we can.
Okay. And with that being said, would we be approving the final plat at the same time?
You would
Or
be
we could-
approving the final plat with the variance.
Okay.
You can look at them as one approval or two interconnected approvals, but that's what you would be looking at.
There's no necessity to go back to the planning board with the variance before it comes to us?
That's a very good question. I think the variance is exclusively in this board's purview. I don't know that it goes to the planning board at all, but we'll double check that in the process.
I would agree with legal counsel on that, considering that when other people apply for variances, they do not go before the planning board on recommendations either.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
I said I would agree with legal counsel on that position as well, considering that when other people go before the Board of Adjustments with variances, they do not go to the planning board
Planning
prior
board
to.
first, okay.
Yes, sir.
That was my only question. Yeah.
Commissioner Piccolo, you have a question?
No, just given the fact that we kind of know about 160D and quasi judicial hearings, that we probably shouldn't make comments then this evening.
Going forward, that's correct. Definitely, I mean, you've got your conflict of interest and ex parte communication rules, so I think now that we know we have a quasi judicial hearing in our future, the board should just refrain from, any dialogue outside of your staff and legal counsel on the process.
All righty.
So you're saying at this point here, we should just stop all conversations pertaining to.
Sorry. Don't you love this one? This law?
That was my comment.
We're talking about procedural questions and how to get from A
Okay.
to Z. I don't believe those are ex parte questions at this point, particularly since they're between staff and legal counsel. And you are entitled to ask those questions, whether in this setting or outside of a formal meeting. What I would not do is engage with anybody else, citizens, the applicant, because they have to be sworn in and testify before you. So going forward, just keep the discussion among staff and legal counsel and you'll be okay. But it's, one of those you can't go out and talk to others when you run into them at the food line or the coffee shop.
Okay. All righty. Based on that, we're not going to be talking to you for right now because there is a request for a variance. So we're just going to be able to table this discussion. Did you want to follow up with that? Okay. So it looks like we're going to table this to our next Board of Commissioners meeting, which we will not have one at the end of this month. We have a workshop that we're going to not do this month, but it will be in January 13th. in which we would take up this discussion. And would it be retitled the preliminary plat along with the variance?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We'll work with staff to get the agenda item and narrative straight.
And that will give you time to advertise and to dot all the i's and cross the t's?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you need us to vote on that, or is a consensus good for you?
I think a consensus is sufficient. The board's okay with it.
Okay? Looks
Good.
All right, well, looks like we're good. All right, thank you very much. Okay. Now we're going to move on to the resolution. It's a petition for annexation at 138 Chadwick Road.
Background information to be provided by Assistant Town Manager Elizabeth Lewis.
Thank you, Mayor and Board. Property owners at 138 Chadwick Road have submitted for voluntary annexation of their lot. It is .258 acres. As you will look in your agenda packet, both the map and the application and all the proper documents are there. The first step in this process, as we've been through, is adopting a resolution to have the town clerk investigate the sufficiency of the annexation request. So that's the question before you tonight. And then I would come back ideally again at the January 13th meeting to submit my findings at that point.
Okay. Let's see if anybody has any questions for our Assistant Town Manager. Yay. Commissioner LoPiccolo?
Infrastructure, what's the infrastructure like on Chadwick Road? Is this something that the person that's applying for annexation will have to pay for additional infrastructure to their property, or something across the street or on that side there?
I believe there would be a cost associated with that. Sam Bell, the town engineer, is here. He's been in contact with the applicant. I think there might be some boring under the road to connect.
Because it
Sam,
does look like
come up and
there's
address that?
ETJ on both sides, right? So
There is
so
ETJ on
both
both
of those are not connected,
Correct.
right?
Hi, Commissioner.
Hi.
Yes, I have been in contact with the applicant about utilities there. She's looking to connect to water and sewer. The water is on the same side as the house, but stops at the house before it. So should be able to extend it up to her lot fairly easily for the water. The sewer is across the street, the gravity sewer. So she'll be able to connect in there. She'll just have to pay for the bore under Chadwick Road. And she's aware that the cost associated with that will be added to her utility fees, utility development fees.
And the water it'll be stubbed out at her property, or is there any means of making sure that there's a loop or a way of that water to kind of to come back?
Right now, it would just be basically an extended service line, so that we wouldn't have to apply for a water permit with the state to extend the main.
Okay.
But, yeah.
And they're aware of the costs and fees associated with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Gilligan?
I think all of my questions regarding this case were answered in previous meetings when you were going to do the study, so I'm good.
Thank you. Commissioner Cooper?
Not at this time.
Okay. Commissioner Oliver?
This, remind me, this is not the same lot that we did before. This is adjacent to that, correct? How many total lots are on that side of the street that would currently not?
So if you're going up Chadwick Road towards the Bow Coast entrance.
Yeah, it's on the left side of the Chadwick Road going in.
So there's one house on Chadwick. Well, there's two houses on Chadwick that are hooked into the system already.
I can't hear you.
There's two houses on Chadwick that are hooked into the system already.
Right.
And then hers is the first one that's not hooked in. And then beyond that, I think there's two more that's not hooked in.
It should be on the right side as you go up.
And she's been in contact with her neighbor, her direct neighbor, and she does not seem interested to hook in to the system. The next neighbor up, I'm not sure. So.
And did I understand for clarity that the cost of providing any and all services to this will be by the landowner?
That is correct, sir.
Okay, that's the only questions I have.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Spiegler?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. If there's any further questions for Elizabeth or for Sam, the action that is being asked for us today is to consider adopting the attached resolution that will instruct the town clerk to investigate the petition for annexation that's been submitted.
Make a motion to accept
Okay.
the petition for annexation as submitted.
Thank you. We've got a motion on the floor. Any further questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed have the same right. Okay, now we're going to move on to the Beaufort Waterfront Operations and Finance Committee update. I'm going to turn this over to the chair and vice chair. We're going to Commissioner Spiegler and Commissioner Gilligan.
Thank you, Mayor Harker. So I'm going to give you an update. We have had one additional BWOF meeting since our last commission meeting. And I believe we had 2 commissioners in attendance, I believe Commissioner Cooper and Commissioner Oliver, so thank you for being there. So just a few quick updates. We gave an update about the fuel farm RFQ, and those responses for the fuel farm construction are due December 16th at 12 p.m. Charlie has let me know that we have received one response and also a contact from a second firm. And once all of those responses are received, there will be a review committee appointed by Mayor Harker, which will include Commissioner LaPiccolo, Commissioner Oliver, and then 2 members of our BWOF committee, Steve Bishop and Vic Fasolino. So we're excited for that. And the review committee will also include our town manager, planner, and engineer, I believe. Yes. Charlie, is there anything you want to add to the fuel farm? No? Okay.
Good shape.
In addition to reviewing the fuel farm details, we also were provided a draft scope of work for the marina management proposals, which I have here, and I apologize, I did not print them out for you all, but I will email them after this meeting. So this document, it was developed by a few members of the BWOF committee and then reviewed by the entire committee. And it basically lays out what we're going to put in the RFP for hiring a marina management company. And the committee did a really good job developing this. It was unanimously approved by the BWOF committee. And Rachel and Charlie will now be able to plug in the information to the RFP. The goal being that it will be, I believe, distributed sometime in January. Is that correct, Charlie?
That's correct.
Okay. So I did want to give the Board of Commissioners a chance to look through that. I've got a hard copy here, but like I said, I'll email it to you all when I get home or probably tomorrow. We do have in place that we do want to have this marina management company hired preferably 60 to 90 days before the end of the year so that they can work with the current operator to make sure that there's a smooth transition even before January 1 of next year. Paula, do you want to add anything to either of those items?
Just to clarify that the scope of work document that'll be coming out is, we're not gonna, the commissioners won't need to vote or accept that
Right.
because we've already have a blanket approval to go ahead with the RFP. It's just to make sure that there's nothing that is super glaring and jumps off the page that you want to provide feedback about. So we just want to make sure that you're comfortable with it, but we're not going to be, tearing it apart.
But we want to make sure we're keeping you updated as we move along. So just want to make sure that y'all have seen it and know that we're moving forward. Actually, I think quicker than we thought. Charlie, right? We've put some homework on your plate.
It's okay. Rachel said she could handle it.
Yeah. The next thing I wanted to give a quick update about is the BRIC application, and BRIC is Building Resilient Infrastructures and Communities. It's a grant program through FEMA. We've had a great group of our BWOF committee working on that, and we have even better news that we are engaging. We've hired WK Dixon, and they're the firm that has been working on the stormwater study and professional park meeting area. They're also going to help us develop our BRIC LOI. And take all of the great work that the BWOF committee has already put into developing that LOI and hopefully get us across the finish line because I believe it's due in 10 days,
10
is
days.
that correct? Okay. I have not been working on it myself. Commissioner Gilligan has put a lot of work into it, so I don't know if, Commissioner Gilligan, do you want to give any updates about that, about the brick application?
That we, there's a lot of background information and there's a good start for WK Dixon to jump off from, so they're not, starting from scratch with the 10 days, so. And then Sam is going to be working directly with WK Dixon on getting it to the finish line, so thanks in advance, Sam.
And I'd also like to say thank you, Sam and Charlie, for having that great idea to engage with WK Dixon on the brick grant. I think that was really creative thinking, so Sam, specifically, thank you for that. All right. That's really all I have. I just have meeting dates now, so do you have anything else you want to? No? Okay. So because we are farther along in the process than we thought we would be at this point, we've actually canceled our meeting next. It was supposed to be December 19th. We had a lot of conflicts with our committee members being out of town as well. So we are very excited. We're canceling the meeting. We have reached all of our goals at this point, and so we have scheduled our next meetings for January of the BOF committee. We'll get those dates out to the committee probably tomorrow or later this week. So we'll be meeting January 9th and January 23rd. And we have one member of our committee here right now. I don't know how many are listening at home, but I just want to say thank you to our outstanding 10 members of the BWOF committee. We could not have gotten to this point without them. I will say even I was impressed by the expertise of this committee, and they exceeded my expectations in the 3 months that our committee has been in operation. So just want to say thank you to them. Probably have to say it again when I see them in person. Their passion and dedication to the town of Beaufort, it really cannot be overstated what this committee was willing to do over the past 3 months. And again, I want to say thank you to Rachel and Charlie. They were instrumental in helping us get this committee off the ground and all of the great work we've done. And lastly, I have to give a really, really big thank you to Commissioner Gillikin, because she was my co-captain and fearless leader in this effort. And I would say we both are looking forward to a little bit of rest at the end of the year now. But thank you, Paula.
Sure
Yeah, and that's all I've got. And we'll take questions from any of the commissioners on any related items.
Okay. Commissioner Little Piccolo, any
No
questions? Commissioner Cooper.
No, I just want to echo exactly what Commissioner Spiegler said. They did a fantastic job in the time that was given. And she truly does have a fantastic committee who made up of citizens of Beaufort who is looking out for the best interests and are well that's in knowledge of what they're been tasked to do. So kudos to her committee, and then kudos to Commissioner Spiegler as well as Commissioner Gilligan.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Oliver? No questions. All right, thank you. Well, when I put this committee together and appointed Commissioner Spiegler and Commissioner Gilligan to be the leaders of this, and knowing that they were picking individuals in the community, when I put out a time frame of December the 31st, I had all the faith in the world that this group would pull it off, or I would not have set that deadline, because I knew that you were going into it with the strength and commitment and the desire and the passion. It was truly the passion that really drove this to the successful level that you are at currently right now. And I can't wait to see what else is in store for this committee, and we're heading in the right direction. So thank you for stepping up to the plate and accepting the challenges. Commissioner Spiegler, Commissioner Gilligan, appreciate that. And you do have a few weeks off? No, one or two?
Yep.
Okay. Just won't go ahead and count the days, but enjoy that time because it's well-deserved. And same for the board members that have been serving on the committee. So with that being said, we're going to go right to the manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. First, just want to thank Christy Wood for all the work that she put into this audit report. It doesn't go unnoticed, particularly when you were next door, but I know there's a great deal of singular effort that went into getting that report before us this evening, so thank you very much. Under public comment. You received one public comment, and staff will circle up and provide you a summary of how things have transpired as it relates to the sidewalks that were alluded to this evening, and we'll try to get that out to each of you by the end of the week, so you'll be up to speed on what staff has been up to in this subject area over the past 2 or 3 months. Lastly, I'll ask our town attorney, Mr. Grady, if he has an item to update you on.
I do. Thank you, Charlie. The board may recall earlier in the year, we were approached about a potential donation of real estate to the town. And I'm pleased to let you know we finalized that transaction today. We received the deed back in the mail today, and it was recorded. Elizabeth, you may be able to pull this up on GIS. We're going to try to pull it up on GIS to refresh everybody's recollection, but it's basically, there we go. Can you zoom out a little bit? Maybe not. Okay, there you go. So you see Turner Street coming in across what I call the new Little Bridge. This is basically, the marshy area that, snakes around Town Creek. This was given to the town. It's part of the pedestrian corridor that we're going to complete that I think is in part located on the former elementary school property. So I just wanted to report that to the board. The deal is done, and took some work with your staff who did a very good job, and new subdivision plats and all of that. So congratulations and an early happy holidays.
All right. Merry Christmas to us. All righty.
So,
And Elizabeth, if you zoom back out, that just want to let the town know. Oh, I'm sorry. Zoom back in. Zoom back in. Oh.
It's very sensitive.
Well, my point was, I think that the property just north of that also is town of Beaufort property. That is at the terminus of West Beaufort Road. So it makes that a property continuous with the marsh. And hopefully, as time moves on, the Trestle Walk project can be complete. So thank you. Thank you to the donor of that property. This will be an amazing part of our community. It'll really connect the pedestrian walkways in town and provide just a different viewing experience for the community. So I'd like to give that person a personal thank you for making that happen, and everyone else who was involved as well.
Mm-hmm. Commissioner Gilligan?
Yeah, just ditto, John. I'm super excited that we have that marsh habitat that's under our purview now. It's very exciting.
Commissioner Cooper?
not much. So, Rachel, any thoughts? You have some plans in place?
Yes. You almost had some money earlier.
That's it. That's all I have.
I presume is in your role that you'll be sending him with direct communication.
With all of our names on it.
He was good to work with. Excuse me.
I would just say this is great news and very excited.
Yes, this is very exciting and long awaited. I know that we have been talking about this connectivity for as long as I can remember. And it just didn't seem to have all the pieces of the puzzle together, but there was a lot of hard work. The donors' generous offer is really going to impact Beaufort's future more than they can imagine. And want to thank them, and we'll be sending a letter from all of us thanking them for that generosity. And this is going to make a big difference. I'm super excited about it. Thank you, Ari, for this early Christmas gift, and the citizens will truly enjoy it. So now we're steps closer to where we need to be. So there's still a little bit more to do, so we're not going to, over celebrate, but this is definitely going to help the process moving forward. And it could happen in my lifetime. Any further reports from the manager?
No, ma'am.
All righty. Now we're just going to move on to the commissioners' comments. We'll start with Commissioner LoPiccolo.
Well, I mean, that made my night. I mean, I love public space, and I think, parks and open space and areas for the community to interact are just tremendous for our town. And we had been lacking in some ways, but we're busting at the seams now. So it's a great addition, and looking forward to it. I want to say happy holidays to the community and to the staff, and wonderful parade this weekend. Great to see everybody out for the flotilla and all the community spirit this weekend. It was just a wonderful, wonderful weekend. And hopefully everyone will enjoy the holidays with their family and friends and loved ones, and take pause to all the amazing things we have in our community, as we should be thankful for. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Gilligan?
Yeah, just, John, I appreciate, or Commissioner LoPiccolo, appreciate how you're thinking about the pedestrian way that will go through that marsh someday, and all I can think about is how many Diamondback terrapins are in there. So very, very excited for that. I'll just keep it brief. I don't have anything further.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Cooper?
Will that be turtles? Get over that. This weekend is the train show that will be held here in Beaufort. So I hope all of those who are train enthusiasts will go out and support. It is free. We don't get many freebies around, but it is free. I want to say Merry Christmas to the staff and to everyone that is present, and to those who are on Zoom. And I hope you have a safe and merry holiday. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Oliver?
If I didn't ask you quick enough, Elizabeth, but if you could open that GIS again and have so much fun at expanding a little bit.
Expand. Not shrink, but expand.
But part of this situation that's coming up, of course, is what's going to happen at Gallant's Channel. And I'll share with you that construction has commenced at Gallant's Channel. That is going to be there are 25 acres of site work plus the new MEC building. And if we look at where we could perhaps work up through the old high school property, get with Greg Moss, get with those people, now's the time, in my opinion, to urge our people who are interested in walkways and this type thing to close the loop. We can do that. And so I really hope that we can put that on kind of an urgent communication, because in my opinion, all the participants are willing. We just need to tie it all together. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Spiegler?
Well, you got me there. I couldn't agree more with you, Commissioner Oliver, on that connectivity. And remember when I told you I was going to St. Simon's Island a few weeks ago? One of the coolest parts is a coastal town in Georgia was I could get on my bike and ride anywhere, even over to the CVS on the bike paths, and that was awesome. So I'd love to make sure that we do that here as well. I'll keep it short too. I want to say thank you to everybody for participating tonight in person and online. We had a great weekend. We did pancakes with Santa with my almost 2-year-old son, and Beaufort Christmas Parade and the flotilla. So he was really tired, and the next day he took like a super long 3.5-hour nap. So it was a good weekend. And that's all I've got, and looking forward to the holidays in Beaufort.
Fantastic. Well, this is going to be our last meeting for the year. Just due to the lack of business, we will not be holding our work session, which would have been held next week. So that's probably good timing, gives staff a break as well as the commissioners to allow them to enjoy some downtime. And as we come to another end of a year, I just want to take a moment to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a very happy and prosperous New Year. This season is a time for joy and giving, but it also is a challenge for food insecurities, which are felt even throughout the year. So I'd like to encourage you all to give as much as possible, and whether it's through donations, volunteering, food drives, just simply offering some kindness during this time of the year will go far, and it will make a big difference. Now, to our dedicated staff, I can't say enough about how much I appreciate each and every one of you. I want to thank you for keeping Beaufort running smoothly, keeping our residents safe. I know there's going to be some staff that's going to be working throughout the holidays, and I want to be able to appreciate you sacrificing that time, but it has not gone unnoticed by myself and the commissioners. And to my fellow commissioners, hey, we have faced both challenges and successes this year, and I could not have asked for a better group of individuals to face those challenges as well as those successes with. And I really, truly commend each and every one of you for the job that you're doing for the citizens in the town of Beaufort. And I wish each and every one of you a bright new year, and I hope you enjoy the little gift I got you. And finally, to the citizens of Beaufort, I want to thank you for your support and your feedback and your shared vision of our beautiful town. I look forward to continuing our work as we move forward to new heights. We just got some good news right now. And together we can make 2025 grow really well and continue to be more resilient and prosperous. So with that being said, can I get a motion to go into closed session?
So move.
I got to say the ordinance is here.
Yeah, and
Oh,
Mayor, go ahead and say your part, and then I have one more to add.
do you want me to wait or do?
Go ahead.
Okay, pursuant to the North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A and 3, and the one that we added, which is the North Carolina General Statute 143-318A and 6.
We also need to add subsection 5, dealing with the potential acquisition of real estate.
And subsection 5. All righty. Can I get a motion to go into closed session?
So move.
We've got a motion on the floor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed have the same right.